What's going on, guys? My name is PJ. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics to talk about and discuss, and honestly the reason that this channel exists, one of the main reasons. And this element that I'm going to talk to you about today is something that has led me into living a much more meaningful life, and it's something that I believe is missing from so many people's lives, and they don't even know it. Because I know I definitely was one of those people that when I discovered this, that when I started exercising this in my own life, my whole life changed and it began to take on a whole new color, a whole new shape, form, and really honestly at the end of the day, it started to take on more meaning, and I started experiencing more meaning in my life. And I never realized how this element missing in people's lives, how much that affects their happiness and basically causes unhappiness when it's missing in their lives. And the element and the thing that I'm going to discuss with you today is creativity and the role of creativity, the importance of creativity in living a life of meaning. I know certainly in my own life, not having creativity be an active part of my life affected my mental health, affected my happiness, my emotional health, to such a degree that I didn't even know can be possible, that I didn't even know exists. And bringing creativity into my life, honestly by chance, made a world of difference. And I believe creativity can make the same level of difference in your own lives if you start implementing it in some shape or form and implementing creativity in some aspect of it into your life. It literally can change your life completely. I know it has for me, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how that has happened in my own life, and hopefully it can bring the same fruits in yours. So when I say creativity, what I really mean by that is not only just creative expression of creative works, creative arts, creating art, not just that, but when I say creativity, I really mean agency. Creativity, being a creative person, doesn't mean that you just sing or draw or can act, but it means that you can actually take conscious choices in your life, that you can exercise agency in your own life, and that you can be a conscious chooser of your actions, of your life, of your circumstances, and that you're not just no longer a victim to your own life, which subconsciously a lot of us feel that way, even if we don't realize it. At the back of our minds, we kind of feel powerless. We feel like we don't have agency and choice over our own lives. And creativity brings that into our lives. Not only having a creative outlet helps us remember that we have choice, but creativity in and of itself, to me, is choice, is agency. Being a creative person doesn't just mean that you can sing and act and draw, but means that you can act in your own life, that you can be a conscious chooser in your own life, that you can create creative circumstances in your own life, and that you can create your life, that you can create what it looks like, and that you can choose to have a different circumstance, a different outcome in your life than what is existing now. So that is something that I mean by creativity, and you can interchangeably, in a sense, change creativity at some points in what I'm going to say in the rest of the video with the word agency or with the word choice, creativity, agency. These are all somewhat equal to me in my perspective and in the context of this video, certainly. So let's go in and talk about my own journey with creativity, because I believe it may relate to some of you to hear my story and find some of it in your own story. So let's go ahead and talk about my own journey. My own journey with creativity started at a young age of actually thinking that I am not at all creative. I remember my first drawings, they were just so bad, and just like my whole life, I grew up in Iran or Iran, and in Iran, the academic world is much more emphasized than, let's say, the arts, or creative expression. And so I never even tried to tap into that creative expression, nor did I feel like it was valued necessarily, nor did I even think that I have creativity. And I feel like in life, we sometimes, especially as children, we may look to our friends and see that they have some sort of creative outlet and feel like that we're lacking that. And I certainly was one of those people that felt like he's lacking that creative outlet, that creative expression, and that I'm just not a creative person. I felt like I'm logical, I'm intellectual, I'm smart, I can think well, I can philosophize, but I didn't feel like I can create and have that creative expression. So that's what I felt like growing up in my own life, that I'm just not a creative person, that I don't have a creative outlet, and I certainly didn't, nor did I even believe that I could be creative if I tried. So that was kind of the mindset that I grew up with. And it wasn't like a family thing. Nobody in my family was like putting me down, like, oh, you're not creative. It was just me believing that about myself. And then later on in life, I took this college class that changed everything for me. It was a class called Creativity and Imagination in Entrepreneurship. I was an entrepreneurship major in college at Oklahoma State University. Go Pokes. and in that class, the first day of the class, we had a very impactful, prolific teacher, rest in peace, Dr. Westbrook. And he basically started a class on the first day saying that everybody is creative, just not everybody recognizes it. And I was like, sure. Like, he obviously, has no idea. Like, basically I was so entrenched in my own belief that I'm not a creative person, that somebody else even trying to make me think otherwise just felt blasphemous. But nonetheless, he started a class, and I think on the first day of class, not only did he started with that premise that everybody is creative or has creativity within them, but also he didn't just stop there and try to intellectually make us understand that. He tried to involve us in an exercise that we all partook in the class. He basically gave everybody in the class, he put us in small groups, and he gave everybody just dry spaghetti, like big, long spaghetti strings. Like, he gave a spaghetti pack basically to each group, and he gave us a bunch of newspapers. And he basically was like, build the tallest structure that you can with these tools. So we have these spaghetti, strings, basically these dry spaghetti strings, these uncooked spaghettis, and we have all these newspapers. And it was so cool, and it was the first time in my life that I saw everybody coming with different solutions to the same problem, quote unquote. And every group was coming up with a different structure. Some people were trying to build it in like a pyramid kind of looking structure. Some people were trying to build it in like a square or rectangle kind of structure. And everyone was trying to build the tallest structure that they can. And it was so cool to see myself coming up with ideas that I didn't even know I have, and just bouncing ideas off of the other people in the group, talking, collaborating, and all of us tapping into a resource that was already there that we didn't know we have. And that resource was creativity. And that class, and on that first day, something unleashed within me, some power, some force, something that I didn't know I have was unlocked within me. And it was kind of like, how in Xbox, I haven't played Xbox in a long time, but I'm sure they still do it. In Xbox 360, you had these things called achievements. So like, when you would go on in the game, you would go on like a certain mission and then complete that, and then it would say achievement unlocked. I may actually even put that kind of graphic on here, but it would say achievement unlocked. And basically that's how I felt in that class. I felt like achievement unlocked. You just unlocked creativity. And in that day, I would literally say my whole life changed, because I started seeing myself as a different person. I started seeing myself as someone who is creative and who is capable of creativity, and honestly very creative, because I could see myself coming up with a lot of ideas, and fairly quickly too. And it was just surprising to me, surprising to others, and just an awesome thing to behold and see. So that day changed my life. And then later in my journey with creativity, I found myself on my first kind of quote unquote big boy job. I found myself with a camera on my lap and being tasked with the task of making videos for the company that I worked for and that I still work for. And that task, which I kind of brought upon myself, and also it was like put on me, and I very gladly took on that challenge, because I always wanted to get more into video, and it was something that I was very intrigued in. I definitely loved YouTube from an early age, and I wanted to somehow, in some shape or form, create content on YouTube at some point. So I felt like what the company wanted and my own dreams really merged in that moment. So I passionately, put myself in that task, and I started learning everything I can about video and trying to get better at that. And that was the first time in my life that I started having a creative outlet. Somewhere, something that I can go to and express myself in a form differently than how I would express myself now. Talking, for most of us is probably the main way that we express ourselves. But for me, for the first time, I had some other way that I could express ideas, concepts, dreams, and put them in a different form than what I was traditionally used to. And that unlocked so much more. Another achievement was unlocked when I realized I can go to a blank canvas, a blank timeline of video, and there's nothing there. And out of nothingness, literally out of nothingness, I can bring something into existence. And that was to me it was a form of manifestation. And Russ, who is a rapper, who I really love his music and I love how he thinks about art and creativity, he also talks about how music was kind of his own diving deeply into manifestation. It was an act of manifestation, creating something out of nothing. It's like alchemy. It is the world of unseen imagination. And I know that sounds super woo-woo or out there if you haven't experienced it, but it's like a world of the unseen is there, and then you are turning it into something seen. When there was no video, and then I would have an idea and a concept, and I would implement and execute on that concept, and then lo and behold, now you have something that you can see and that you can share with others. It was an act of creation. It was an act of birth, an act of manifestation, an act of something out of nothingness. And it was so empowering to see that. Even though those early videos sucked, it wasn't even about that. It was about the fact that crappy, shitty video didn't even exist before. So at least now something exists that didn't before, that like I made. It's like a little kid that's just like drawing, for the first time, or like, they're just like starting drawing, and the drawings look horrible, but the parent is like, oh, good job, little Bobby or whatever. And it's like, you have now this ability to create something out of nothing. And over time, with time and and experience, you get better and better at that craft. And so what you bring out, like the idea may be amazing, but your implementation and execution of that idea, it takes a long time for it to like match that idea in your head. What ends up, being created, it takes a while, and it takes you improving your craft for it to match exactly how you envisioned it. But that comes with time. But just the act of bringing something out of nothing is one of the most empowering things I have ever experienced. It's an eye-opening experience to have for yourself when you realize you have this ability. You have this ability to make conscious choices and bring something into existence that didn't exist before. It's just that a lot of us think that that doesn't apply to our lives. It may apply, let's say we have creativity in our own lives, we have a creative outlet. We may not realize that creative expression, that creativity can be applied to our own lives, that we can create our lives in a meaningful way. We can envision what we want our life to be and work on creating that every single day. And I will recommend some books at the end of the video that will help you with that kind of shift in mindset, especially one book that I'm going to recommend later, and I'll just go ahead and share it now. It's a book I recently read by Donald Miller. It's called Hero on a Mission. And this is literally single-handedly the best book I have read definitely this year. And I read a lot of books, but definitely this year, the best book I've read. And most certainly, I would say in the last 365 days, it's the best freaking book I've read. And it's not even close. It's by far the best book I've read. And it's just basically about, applying creativity, being a conscious chooser in your own life and choosing different circumstances, different outcomes, and becoming a creative person, not just in your creative expression, but in your life and creating your life. And it's just an empowering feeling to, when you have a creative outlet, it makes you learn these lessons. It makes you unlock these achievements. It makes you realize that you can create something out of nothing. And that applies to your life as well, that you can create something in your life that didn't exist before. So it doesn't just have to be an art form. Your life can be your art. and you can express yourself and your gifts and your passions and your dreams in your own life through your creative expression, and be able to be a creative person in your own life and bring things into existence, not only for yourself and the benefit of yourself, but the benefit of others. And when those two kind of meet, when what benefits you and what is exciting for you and what is beneficial for others meet, like that, when they meet, that becomes really a miraculous experience. And I feel like, you know, in the Bible or in Christianity, they say that we are made in the image of a creator, or we are made in the image of God. Well, you are made in the image of a creator, meaning that if you are in the image of a creator, you are a creator yourself. It's just that a lot of us haven't tapped into that God-given ability that we have to be creative, to create, to bring things into existence that didn't exist before. So that is just a very powerful experience to have for anyone. And that was my own journey. The video making and the video production was my own journey of experiencing what it feels like to look at a blank canvas, to look at a blank sequence, to look at a blank timeline and say there's nothing here now, but in my mind's eye and my inspiration, I can see things that don't exist yet. And through my execution of that inspiration, I can bring things into form that didn't exist before. And I can apply that same logic, that same ability to my own life and become a creative, conscious chooser of circumstances in my own life and become a creative being that I've always been. I just haven't realized. So that was kind of my own journey. Let's jump forward into some other topics in the video. Okay, now something else that I want to talk about is the difference, or rather the imbalance that a lot of us have in our lives between consuming and creating. Most of us go through life just being consumers. We're consuming things that other people have made. We're consuming food, we're consuming products, we're consuming music, we're consuming movies, TV shows that other people have created and have made. And honestly, the most successful people, if you know, the richest people, the most successful people, whatever you want to say, they are, if you look at kind of like a list of the top people, they're all creative. They're all not creative, but like they are creating. They are producers. They are not consumers. And that's not why we create. And that's not the purpose of this video. But I just want to bring attention to that. It's like they are creating something. They are putting something out into the world that didn't exist before. And through that role of being a producer or being a creator, they have achieved great success. And it's like life rewards us for being a creator. But most of us don't ever step into the role of being a creator. We are just consumers. Now, there's nothing wrong with consuming. It's one half of a whole. You know, it's like, you know, it's a duality. So we have consuming and we have creating. And consuming is what ends up consuming the whole of our lives for most of us. And there's no creativity. There's an imbalance, a massive imbalance in our lives. We're just consuming things that other people have made. Now, like I said, nothing wrong with that. It's just that when it's imbalanced over time, what it leads us to experience subtly and most likely unconsciously, subconsciously, it makes us realize or feel like a victim. It makes us feel like we don't have choice because we're always consuming something that somebody else created, and we don't feel like we have choice or we have creativity or we have the ability to create something of our own, and we're always kind of at the mercy of consuming what other people have made. Like we don't have any say in it. It's very subtle. I know for me, I never even realized that I felt like that subtly until I started implementing creativity in my own life and having some sort of creative outlet, that I was like, oh my God, like this is something, this creation thing, you know, this other half of this whole is something that I've never tapped into before, that I know a lot of people have never experienced before, but it's something that brings so much empowerment because you realize you have choice. You realize you have options, you have the ability to create circumstances, that you have the ability to make choices, different choices that can bring about a different outcome, a different life, a different circumstance. And that ability to realize that you have agency and that you have choice, it brings you out of victimhood. Because victims, now I'm not saying real victims don't exist. I have certainly lived in parts of the world that real victims exist. And that you are being suppressed and oppressed by a lot of different forces. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that the kind of the role of the victim that we pick up for ourselves in our minds and start believing and seeing ourselves as a victim, even though we do have the ability to choose different circumstances for our life. It's just that we don't perceive that we do. And it's kind of like this idea that if you get an elephant in a circus and you get that elephant as a baby, if you put a very small chain around the leg of this elephant as a baby, when it can't break, where it can't escape because this chain is stronger than the elephant when it's a baby, if that elephant starts growing up and you still kind of wrap the same chain around their leg as they're growing up and they're becoming much more powerful and stronger, and they can easily break that chain if they wanted to and escape, because it's been entrained in their mind that they can't, they don't perceive themselves as having the ability to break that chain. So they spend their whole life in captivity, not knowing that they always had the choice to escape from that, and that they can literally like step into a creative role, so to speak. It's like, I don't have to be a victim to this chain. I can break this chain. I've always had the ability to, I just never realized. And because they don't perceive it, they don't use it. And when you don't use it, you don't benefit from it. And so with creativity, we all have this ability to be creative. We all have this ability to create different circumstances. It's just that we're so entrenched in the role of the consumer that we don't even see any other option. And that over time, we start feeling like a victim. And as we start feeling like a victim, we start losing a sense of meaning in our own lives. And slowly, it's like we're looking forward to the end of our lives. And it's so sad. And it's so subtle. It's like a poison drip. It's just one drip at a time. When we are living in an overconsumption and no creation kind of mode, we are slowly and surely gonna lose a sense of meaning. At least that's what I have found to be immensely true in my own life. Anytime I am feeling out of sorts, for me, it always goes back to one thing. I've started to feel like a victim in some shape or form, or feel like, which are synonymous to victimhood, or feel like I don't have choice in my life. In some shape or form, I am starting to not think that I can change in some shape or form, either the circumstances in my life or how I think about the circumstances in my life. In some shape or form, I have become that elephant that is seeing itself as stuck to that chain that it can easily break. And I have started to feel like a victim. And instead, in that book that I recommended earlier, the book Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller, which like I said, best book I read in 2022, hands down, not even close. That book talks about how a sense of meaning is brought about in our lives when we start seeing ourselves as a hero on a mission versus a victim or a villain. So Donald Miller is a writer. He's also a business owner and has an amazing business helping other businesses find their story and how to communicate their messages, which, I highly recommend his business books as well, mainly the Building a Story brand book. But nonetheless, in this book, and him being a writer, he's talking about the different elements in stories. And he's talking about the 4 characters in stories. You have the hero, you have the victim, you have the villain, and you have the guide. And basically the guide is who the hero becomes later on in their life as they have overcome a lot of challenges, and now they are in a position to guide other heroes on mission to help accomplish their goals and their dreams, basically. But most of us go through life seeing ourselves as a victim. And a big factor in that is that we are overly consuming and not at all creating in some shape or form. So we are believing ourselves to be a victim. But he talks about how meaning in life is brought about when we start seeing ourselves as a hero on a mission. And that mission can be a mission of our own choosing. And that's a powerful thing. Like, he's basically talking about how as we're growing up in life is handing us stories. So first you're like, go to kindergarten, and then you go to, later you go to high school, and then you go to college, and then you get married, and like or you get your, first big job. And there's all these stories. And at some point, society ends. The stories that's handing out to us, it ends. And there's no more narrative. There's no more seeing ourselves as this person on this mission. Like, oh, I'm just a high school kid right now. I'm just in high school, and there's really nothing else to think about but just to go to my classes, get my work done, etc. And then in college and in our job. But at some point, and he talks about how midlife crisis happens in many people's lives when the stories of society have ended for them and there's no other story that they feel like life is giving them. But he's talking about how we can choose to make a story, to choose a mission for ourselves and really write down like what we want our goals and dreams to be. Like, who do I want to be in 10 years? What kind of life do I want to have? And then go backwards and figure out, how to basically move towards that every single day. And basically the role of creativity in this is that it's like especially if you have a creative outlet in your own life, you start believing that you have choice in your life, because that creative outlet every single day is allowing you to experience yourself as a creator who's consciously putting something new on the plot. It's like if your life is a canvas, or what, he says, put something new on the plot. That's a story term. It's like every day put something on the plot, add something to the story. But your life can be like a canvas, and it's like you're drawing this beautiful painting, and every day you can show up and add a little bit to this painting and add a little bit more. It's like a puzzle that starts appearing one piece at a time, but it's of your own choosing. And your life can become like this beautiful painting. And when you have a creative outlet in your life, when you have creative expression in your own life, you start believing and realizing and seeing yourself as that person who is capable of changing their lives, and slowly and surely get yourself out of victimhood and out of villainhood, or whatever you want to call that, and into being a hero on a mission of your own choosing, and start feeling the sense of meaning that comes from being able to consciously choose to have different circumstances in your own lives. And a powerful book on this is Man's Search for Meaning, about Viktor Frankl, who was in Auschwitz in a concentration camp. And even though he didn't have choice there, a true victim, even though he didn't have choice, he realized he has choice over what he thinks and how he perceives this situation. And that literally saved his life. And later he went on to impact literally millions and millions of people's lives. And that book has been like a top seller for like, many, many years. Man's Search for Meaning. It's a very powerful book about what it takes to live a life of meaning. And to me and to Donald Miller, the role of creativity and believing that you have conscious choice is so important in living a life of meaning. When you don't feel like you have choice and you are a victim and you're always at the mercy of circumstances and you're at the mercy of fate giving you different scripts for your life, when you feel like you're just always at the mercy of that, you feel very powerless. And as a result of feeling powerless and having no agency or creativity, you feel like your life has no meaning. And slowly and surely you start kind of like looking forward to death. And it's a very sad thing, like I said, but we have choice. And having some sort of creativity in your life, some sort of creative outlet, makes you realize that you have creativity in your whole life, not just in that creative expression, but in your whole life, that you can choose, that you can act, that you can make different choices and have different outcomes. If you are struggling with some sort of like health problem, like let's say you're overweight, realizing that you have choice to change that is a creative act. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, agency and creativity to me are the same, and I'm using them synonymously. You have agency over those circumstances. And I know for me, every time I'm in a funk, it always goes back to feeling like a victim in some shape or form. So I always come back to creativity and snap myself out of it. Sooner or later, it takes a while sometimes, but I get myself out of it through realizing that I am a creator and that I have choice. And that's something that I want for all of you. And that's why I chose to make this video, to share that with you, to make you realize you are creative, you have the ability to be creative, and you have the ability to make choices, different choices in your own life, and take on agency in your life and become a conscious chooser of your circumstances and change your life. You can do that, and it starts with you believing that, and it starts with you finding a creative outlet, which you can find through experiment. You don't even have to initially be into it. I didn't think I'm gonna be into video as much as I found myself to be into it, but just pick up different things and experiment. Maybe try drawing, maybe try writing, maybe try, making a video, maybe try writing a song, playing an instrument, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's just that you want to remind yourself that you can be creative and keep, searching. And some people can be creative through like some sort of athletic, activity. That can be creative too, even though it's within a box and it's per se that someone else made. But some football players can be very creative. Tom Brady is very creative, but he's playing a game in a new way, in a sense, or whatever it may be. You can bring creativity into that. You can bring creativity into your work. You can start coming up with new solutions, new ideas, and implementing them into your own life. So experiment, and find that creative outlet, because it's going to unlock undiscovered abilities within yourself that you didn't know before. And to help you with that, and to end and close the video, I'm going to recommend some books that have been immensely influential in my own life to find creativity and exercise creativity in my own life. So they are as follows. Okay, so this first book that I'm going to recommend is going to be totally unexpected, especially in the context of talking about creativity. Like, this book seems like it's completely unrelated, but I would say it has been one of the most, single-handedly one of the most influential books in my own life in stepping out of victimhood, realizing that I have conscious choice. And conscious choice and creativity and agency, they all go hand in hand, like I said earlier. And this book is no other than Codependent No More by Melody Beattie, I believe. So Codependent No More, it says how to stop controlling others and start caring for yourself. Now, codependency is something that I didn't even know is like a thing. I didn't even know what it means or that it exists. But to basically put it simply, it's a lot more like related to people who are caretaking or living with or are in a relationship with people who are struggling with some sort of addiction to some sort of substance. And basically, like, codependence, technically, like the way it started, codependency, the way it started is people who are caretaking those people, and how their life so much is at the mercy of the addicts, or the person who is struggling with that addiction. They start losing control over themselves and over their own lives, and start feeling like a victim, and basically are at the mercy. Now, it doesn't always have to be so intense. I didn't have some sort of, alcoholic or drug addict in my life that was affecting me to become a codependent. It's just that certain personality types, and in different ways and different areas in our own lives, not in every single area, maybe not in our family, but maybe at your job, maybe in a different situation, maybe if you're in a, athletic team, maybe in your team, in some area, you may start seeing yourself as a victim, or or feel codependent. And some personality types, I'm a huge fan of the Enneagram. I've talked about the Enneagram bunch. I have a bunch of videos on it on my channel. The Enneagram was another tool that helped me unlock my creativity and my ability to realize that I have choice in my life. But some personality types, I would say in particular type 9s, which is my personality type, and type 2s, and maybe some other types, are more prone to see themselves as codependents or victims, or feel like they don't have choice. And this book tremendously helped me unlock choice in my life and realize that I have options that I can choose. So shout out to my girlfriend for introducing me to this book. And this is actually her copy. But super life-changing. This is the first book I would recommend to you on starting a creative journey, realizing that you are creative, but really to realize you have choice in your life and that you can consciously choose different outcomes, different circumstances, and create a different life for yourself. This book is literally life-changing, I'm not gonna lie. So that's why I wanted to put it as the first book. Let's see if I have anything else to say about that. No, basically that's all I wanted to say. It's just that, codependency, I believe, is something that a lot of people, when I read what codependency is, and I read about, how codependents act, I was like, why the heck did I not know about this before? Because I'm totally, like, every single thing she said about, like, oh, this is how a codependent acts, I was like, how did she like follow me around and like start, taking notes on how I think and how I behave? Because I like 100% related to her explanation of how, codependents act, and I never knew about it. So just knowing about what it is so helpful, and it's a game changer. So I recommend this book as the first one. Now let's jump in and talk about the second book that I recommend for living a creative life that leads to a life of meaning. Okay, very quickly, I'll say this. The second book, I've already talked about it a bunch, so I'm not gonna, talk more about it, but Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller, just super impactful, game changer, changed my freaking life in the recent months. And it is something that gave words to ideas that at different time I had, started to like glimpse. I was like, when I stop feeling like a victim, I feel more joy. When I start, deciding what I want in my life and moving towards that every day, I feel very fulfilled. And it gave words to all of it. It's like he basically like mapped out. It's like I had this very blurry or pixelated image in my mind of like these different ideas that I was starting to connect the dots in between just through different experiences in my life. He basically like painted the whole picture, and it was like, this is what it would look like. It's like I'm uncovering a fossil and I'm finding some bones here and some bones here. And he's like, this is what the whole bone structure would look like if it was all connected. And you're like, oh, cool. Then I have like the rib here. You know what I mean? So anyways, that book is a game changer. Highly recommended. Any Donald Miller, book, basically like in the recent years, whether it's business books or that Hero on a Mission book, they're all very powerful. And the way he explains things, I think, is very relatable. And fun fact, he's an Enneagram 3. And Enneagram 3, like if as a 9, it's totally a side note, but as an Enneagram 9, basically like your best self would look like a type 3 in a lot of ways. Like you start, kind of exhibiting some type 3 characteristics. So hearing him as a type 3 explain certain things helps me try to embody and become more and more of my, highest best self that I can be. So now on to the next book. The next book that I have for you in realizing that you are a creative being, a creative person, and the importance of creativity in your life, and also how to just even start a creative journey, how to begin that, start traveling down that road, how to begin that journey, how to do that. One of the best books on that is this huge, gigantic, it's the actual main book is not this big. This is like a combined copy of like 3 books in one. But this is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Creativity as a Spiritual Practice. And I love this book. I think Julia Cameron is very talented in being able to talk to us about how to find and begin implementing creativity in our own lives. And this book has helped me a ton in my own life. And it's something that like basically the 3 books that are in this book, they start with like finding, like the first book is about like finding kind of your creative outlet. The second one is about, how to like basically on a daily, kind of put in a daily practice. And this is how to sustain that creative journey, the last one. She's very powerful at like helping you find that and implement that. And I love basically the spiritual correlation, because I do believe, not to get super woo-woo, like not in every, situation, but creativity can be a very spiritual act and something that can connect you deeply to the spiritual plane, because you're literally tapping into the unseen and making a scene. It's literally like, to me, one of the most spiritual things you can do. So I would recommend, and definitely if you're into, kind of more like the spiritual side of creativity, then you would love her works. So that's the next book. On to the next one. All right, the next book is a book by a gentleman who I have looked up to for quite a while now, especially ever since I started my creative journey. And his, podcast really helped me. And I actually got to meet him in 2018 at a Lewis Howes event called Summit of Greatness in Ohio. I got to meet Chase Jarvis there. So here's a little photo of us together, either here or here. And so that was cool. But he has this book called The Creative Calling, or Creative Calling, I believe it's called. And this book totally helped me realize that I literally can like dream. And I know that sounds so simple, but like sometimes, especially if you've lived your whole life, as a consumer, as most of us have, like if we forget over time as years compound that we literally can dream and choose and be creative and like create a different life for ourselves. And that book really helped me bring that out of myself. Start seeing myself more as a conscious chooser and a creative agent in my own life, and start acting on my own behalf. So highly recommend that book. It can help you unlock creativity in your own life and help you know how to sustain it also in the long term. So check that book out, Creative Calling by Chase Jarvis. All right, last book that I'm going to recommend, and to me it's like, can you even have a conversation about creativity and not mention this person, this artist? Steven Pressfield, boom. The author of War of Art. Now, actually the book I'm recommending by him is The War of Art, and Turning Pro is like another book in that series. It's called Tap Your Inner Power and Create Your Life's Work. But basically, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield is a book I'm actually recommending here. I just have never been able to hold on to a copy of that book because I always end up gifting it to someone at some point. And every time I see someone starting some sort of creative journey and they're struggling in some shape or form, I'm like, The War of Art, like, look no further. You know, so I've never been able to actually keep a copy to myself, so I'm just showing this one. But basically, that book is actually more, I would say, for people who have already started a creative journey. That's why I positioned it as the last one, because it's all about how to sustain creativity and how to actually show up every day and put a little something on the plot, add a little bit more to your drawing, to the drawing of your life, and how to consistently, you know, pursue creative work. So this is kind of like the second book in that series, but I've always said actually is if I got one tattoo in my life, it would be literally the last phrase in this book. Right here. It just, for some reason, it always hits me so hard. It says, the hero wanders, the hero suffers, the hero returns. You are that hero. Whew! Chills like the first time I read it. We are the hero. We can be the hero of our own stories, you know, and we can become conscious choosers of a story that we find meaningful in our own lives and become the hero of that. I always felt like life is like a video game and we're the main character, we're the main player, and we can choose how we want to play this game of life. It's just that a lot of us never see ourselves as that person. But it's like you can level up. You can choose how you want to go through this game. And you can, like the hero, you can wander, you may suffer, but you'll return, and you'll return with gifts for not only yourself, but for others. And you are that hero, and you have to choose to see yourself as that and start living a meaningful life by realizing you have creativity inside you, you have choice inside you, you have agency within you, and you can choose a different life for yourself and for others around you. A life that's more meaningful, that's better, and that's more conducive to who you really are. So believe in that and pursue that. And my whole goal with this video is to make you believe that, make you believe you have creativity, and not just make you believe it, but understand why it's important to exercise creativity in your own life and believe that you have creativity and that you can start a creative journey that bears fruits not only within its own expression of that creative endeavor, but also it expands and envelops your whole life and makes you realize that your creative expression doesn't just stop there, it applies to your whole life, and you can change circumstances in your own life, you can become a conscious chooser in your own life, and you can have agency over your own life. And that, my friends, allows you to be a hero in your own story. It allows you to see yourself as no more a victim, but a sovereign chooser of your circumstances, a conscious chooser of your own circumstances and of your own life. And having those choices and having that agency leads to living a meaningful life. And so I want to share that with you. I want to encourage you to pursue creativity, to pick up a creative outlet and start that creative journey, because it will bear so many fruits in your life and in the lives of people around you. So check these books out, you know, start a creative journey, and that's it. I mean, it's just, I feel like I'm gonna keep harping on that, but I really, really wish everyone had a creative outlet in their life, because it would make their life so much better. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it helps you. I hope that it serves you. And if you did, let me know by liking this video. And if you would like and feel so inclined to, subscribe to my channel to see more videos on your homepage in YouTube. So thank you. I hope to see you in my next video. And until then, take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.